Tracy.
Dilly.
Tracy.
Dilly.
I got a question. I'm going to
Go
throw
on,
it at you.
man.
Magnesium.
Yes, I love magnesium. It
I
makes
know.
me very happy.
I know. We
Literally and figuratively.
We have so much magnesium in our house, but different forms of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then for different areas, applications, should we say, some internal, some external. And we get asked a lot about magnesium because of Donovan. So I want to ask you, from a nutrition standpoint, what are the different forms of magnesium and what are the benefits?
AKA, why do I have so many different types of magnesium in our household, and why do I
there's
always
too
talk
many different
about
types.
it? I mean, I think one of the big things with magnesium is, it's not just a mineral, kind of like we say with vitamin D. It's not just a vitamin, it's a hormone.
Yeah.
We're learning more and more about nutrients, and magnesium's another one. It's not just a mineral, but it's a really, really important cofactor in that it's involved in over 300 different enzymatic reactions in the body. And so along with the magnesium requirements in the body just to, replenish that mineral, there's also significant requirements to allow other pathways in the body to function and other reactions to function. So without enough magnesium, the whole system starts to break down, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's why it's so important as a baseline nutrient. But then also there's the aspect that we tend to be quite, I'm going to say deficient, actually. We tend to be quite deficient in magnesium in the modern world. I mean, I think statistically they say about 2/3 of those living in the Western world actually have suboptimal magnesium levels. But I would argue that actually it's much more than that. The reason being...
Sorry, to say it again. How many people?
2/3 in the Western world.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's as much as vitamin D then, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, I would actually argue that it might be even more.
Same with vitamin D, because we've talked about this before with vitamin D, haven't we? Like there being a lot higher than we actually know.
Yeah. And I would say the reason for that is twofold. So one being the soil nutrient depletion. So, when we're eating our magnesium-rich foods, your dark green leafy vegetables, your nuts and your seeds, you're thinking, oh, I'm golden, lots of magnesium, great. That's really not the case, because the levels of magnesium in those foods aren't necessarily what your web browser might say, because those studies are really, really old.
I want to know how old those studies are, because they've tested them and they said it contains this much magnesium.
Yeah.
And so if it's based on old data, how relevant is it right now?
It's just one of those things that, I think there's a history of poor investment in nutritional research. And so, I mean, in nutritional research, but also in a lot of areas, to be honest. I think sometimes when there's been a piece of research that we kind of say, okay, this is the fact. And then particularly when it gets involved in industry, because, those food nutrient levels are the basis for our whole nutritional calculation system for packaged foods. And I mean, anyone that's been involved in that will just see what an absolute complex mare that is. So you're not really going to be shaking it up too much, because it would cost a lot of money to redo those studies. And it's also really, really difficult. But anyway, I digress. So the quantity of magnesium you're getting through those foods, if you're even eating those foods, because a lot of us are going to be eating much more ultra processed or boxed and packaged foods on balance, and those foods in particular have almost zero magnesium. I mean, magnesium isn't really one of those minerals that packaged foods tends to fortify. It tends to be more like your B vitamins and vitamin D that you'd fortify foods with. So magnesium doesn't tend to make the cut there. So that's kind of why we might have less magnesium in our system through a dietary perspective. But actually there's the other side of things, which is that our magnesium levels are challenged a lot through the modern environment. So things like stress, medication, alcohol, even sometimes certain supplements, things like that, exercise, tension, all of these things are also requiring additional magnesium to support our body in that environment. And so you kind of have these two sides that are really challenging your magnesium status. And what we're seeing is a lot of extremely suboptimal levels, but in a lot of cases actually nearing on deficiency levels of magnesium. So I guess in terms of why I'm passionate about magnesium, that's one of the big ones. Magnesium also is that thing that there's certain clinical signs that, you can quite quickly see. Maybe, I don't know, should I say some of those or should I keep it for another video? But you often see, like in really stressed company environments, that little kind of eye tick and that eye twitch.
Yeah.
Or, people that get a lot of muscle cramps and things like that. There can often be a magnesium element to those things. But then in terms of the forms of magnesium, so this is a really fun one actually, because I feel like in the world of nutrition and supplements, there's always this fight for, what is the best form, because I need to be taking the best form, which in a way is a good conversation to be having, because I think we're coming from a place where there was just, magnesium or calcium or vitamin D. There wasn't the question of bioavailability. But something that's I don't see discussed much in the magnesium space is the fact that there are several different forms, but actually you kind of want to adjust what form you're taking depending on what you're trying to support. Because magnesium is utilized in so many different aspects of the body, if you want to efficiently support one area, say the digestive system, you might choose a certain form, say citrate, because we know that citrate works quite well in the digestive system, particularly, say, if constipation is your issue and you're trying to use magnesium to relieve that. Citrate can be quite an effective form in that case. However, if you're taking magnesium to support your brain health, maybe that's what you're more interested in, citrate probably isn't going to effectively reach the brain in the same way that magnesium L-threonate might. Or, if you're looking at supporting anxiety or stress or kind of blood sugar balance, a lot of research suggests that glycinate might be a great form. Migraines, there's a lot of research around oxide and malate. I'm trying to think of the other forms. Magnesium sulfate and chloride is great as a transdermal form of magnesium. In the case of, if you've really sore muscles and you're trying to relax those, then your transdermal magnesium is probably going to most efficiently get to that location. So
Just so everyone's aware, when Tracy talks about this magnesium sulfate and chloride, in our house we have a 25 kilo bag of magnesium chloride next to our bath. And that is replenished, I would say, every 6 weeks.
It's a must for every bathroom. Okay?
Put it this way, I think there's going to be a pallet of magnesium downstairs. So when she talks about chloride for muscles, that is a game changer. I would say when you told me about magnesium and we got it in the sulfate form and the chloride form, because we buy it in big bags, and we'll stick the link to the one that we use in the description.
Yeah, because let me tell you, it'll save you some money.
It would definitely save you some money. One, it's cheaper, and two, it's a talking point about magnesium, but that was a game changer. A lot of people focus about taking it internally and orally, but not many people look at it taking it transdermally through the skin. And I think when we were talking, you said to me, transdermal magnesium is one of the best ways to get magnesium stores back up to replenished.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of research around that actually, and I think traditionally a lot of the research was done on capsulated magnesium or taking magnesium internally, and now there's been a lot more transdermal studies, and it really is looking like transdermal is a very efficient form of magnesium supplementation. Now, with that being said, again, you have to have the question of, well, why are you taking magnesium? What are you trying to solve? Because if you're trying to solve, some sort of digestive upset, then taking it internally in a capsulated form might still work. But for anything kind of external to that and definitely, your aching muscles, your cramps, things like that, then transdermal can be really efficient. And in a lot of cases, actually, you need to combine methods as well. So say with, brain health, or if you're having really bad migraines and things like that, and you're severely deficient in magnesium, then you are going to need to take an internal magnesium in order to bring your levels back up and target the migraine internally. But actually adding some topical magnesium in an acute sense can help to release that tension, particularly in the case where it is like tension headache or things like that. So I think you just really need to think about what you're trying to achieve and then make an informed decision based on that.
Yeah, I think you're, because you said it before with the magnesium. I remember, because as very, it's rare, but I do get migraines, and they're much better now. But I used to always spray magnesium on my temples and the back of my neck just to kind of help transdermally through that. And I always found either that and taking a bit of like a magnesium supplement, Dolovant again, just gonna throw that in there, has really, really supported with just releasing that tension in the muscle, in the actual physical muscles.
Absolutely, because again, you have to think about why are you getting a migraine or why are you getting a headache? Because, since you've started supplementing, that kind of chronic migraine space that you were in has pretty much evaporated.
Tension and stress, wasn't it? Yeah.
But I think now what triggers your migraines is tension and stress. And so if we're thinking tension, we're thinking muscles, we're thinking ligaments, having something to chemically kind of release that on the outside by, applying a magnesium salt there is going to help in the mechanical sense. But then depending on where you are at with your health, if you're going through a period of stress and tension and you're also slugging down the caffeine and maybe you haven't been eating as well and maybe you haven't been supplementing, then that's not going to be enough to resolve the issue. You're going to have to build back up your stores among stores of other things most likely in order to actually resolve the issue and allow you to move forward.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, so just let us know in the comments below. But I find if I'm drinking, like when we're going for a really like periodic, like I would say a moment of stress where it's intense, I notice that because I'll start to drink a lot more caffeine.
Yeah.
And I actually started to notice that I would basically clench my fists and like I'd be sitting, let's say I'm at my desk, and I would like literally sit there and I'd be clenching the back of my calves or I'd put a lot of tension into my elbows. And that's when I've noticed, right, my magnesium stores are low. And every single time I've had a magnesium bath, it's gone. The tension goes, I'll have a really good night's sleep and I can feel my muscles back to relax. And I always say to people, like, you'll always notice the next day that big difference when your magnesium stores are up. And let's be honest, Tracy, we're all busy, man.
Yeah.
You imagine taking just half an hour, 45 minutes to have a bath. Like, it doesn't matter how busy you are, but just that, saying to yourself, right, I'm going to give myself a little bit of me time. And one, you get the benefit of the magnesium, but two, you just get a little bit of me time. And right now, a lot of us just need that me time.
And particularly, I think it helps when it's forced me time. So if it's something to kind of resolve, an issue or ailment that you've been having. But actually with the magnesium bath, if it's saturated enough, you only need 15 to 20 minutes in there, which was an important one for me after having Rivi because, in the early days, just getting 20 minutes alone could be challenging. So literally just taking that 15 minutes just to dip in the bath can actually make such a difference. It's not going to necessarily resolve the long-term issue. There's going to be other things that you need to do, but at least it can kind of, I always say it mechanically, kind of biochemically relaxes the muscle, which naturally relaxes that stress and tension and just allows you a little bit of space to kind of look at the next thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I fully agree with you. I think one of the links I'm going to share below is flotations and flotation spa, like therapy, because I think that's a discussion that we need to have. This is just a taster today of magnesium.
I know, now I feel like I really want to just talk about magnesium. You're just like, you're literally tempting me. So you're like throwing my favorite topic on and then just cutting me off. I really just want to like speak for hours.
Listen, if you want to see this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we're going to have a deep dive into magnesium. I think this is a
Oh,
topic
yeah.
that's been not been ignored, but it's been talking about, but not in detail. And I think we bring the detail.
Yeah, I feel like it just gets spoken about in lots of right ways, but also in very complex and jargon filled and confusing ways. Whereas actually, it's quite simple. And yeah, it can really make. There's certain nutrients that I feel really, really move the marker. I call them those like my foundational nutrients.
Yeah.
And magnesium is 1000,000,000% one of them. So yeah, I'm down for it. Whenever you want to ask me about magnesium, you just go for it. I'll sit here happy.
And hey, if you've got a question about magnesium that you want us to cover in our long deep dive into magnesium, just hit it in the comments and don't worry, we will answer it.
Yeah, we'd love that. Please let us know.
Thanks.
Awesome.